Completed products need to be exported to the proper format based on the user's or customer's requirements. We have a wide variety of customers that we would be sending product to. Perhaps we'll air it on AFN, the Pentagon channel. Maybe we'll give completed stories to the service production houses, or upload our completed stories to Divids. Each customer has its own requirements, and we can set up our export to accommodate each. We can export both SD and HD, and we can even set up multiple exports that can be done all at once. And the best thing is that exports can be done in the background, freeing you up to continue editing on this or any other project. Okay, let's put this into practice now and take a look at what we have here in Premiere. We've got a timeline here that we're going to use to send to the Pentagon channel. That'll be our example. We've got the standard naming convention, and we put TPC on the end so we know which one we're dealing with. Over in the timeline here, we can see we've got our story laid out, and we've got our slates and some black. Now, when we export, we're going to have to let Premiere know what part of the story that we want to export. Now, we have three ways to do it. One, we can say just take the entire timeline. Everything that's in here is going to go. Another option is to use the workspace, and you'll see up here this gray bar. This shows us what is the workspace. We can actually adjust it and say we only want a part of the workspace right here. This is the only part we're interested in. Another option, and we'll go ahead and reset that. Another option that we have is to mark in and out points, and we can say, okay, that's the part of the story that we want to export. So we have all three methods. It doesn't matter which one we use, we just have to make sure that we identify which method we're going to use, and you'll see that here in just a moment. Okay, so we go over to our project window here, and we tell Premiere that we want to export it. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can simply come up under File and hit go to Export and then Media. You'll also notice that there is a keyboard shortcut for this, and that's Control M. Once we load the export settings window, now we have a little bit of work to do, especially if we haven't done this before. And what I mean by that is if you've never exported to a particular customer, you're going to need to set up the export settings appropriately for that customer. So in our example here, we are setting it up for the Pentagon channel or DMA production. So we're going to set this up, and the first thing that we need to do is set the format here. So we're going to come up to Format, and where it says AVI, we're going to go to H.264. And that's going to change a lot of the settings automatically for us, but not everything. And we'll go and address those individually here in just a minute. What we want to make sure is that the preset that we want is for HD. So let's find our proper one here, and you'll notice here are all the HD ones, and we're going to shoot, or we're going to send them the same thing that we shoot, which is 720p 2997 or 30 frames per second. Now for exporting to DMA production or the RMC, since we're using a preset value here with no change, there's no need to do anything else. Every time that we come in here, all we have to do is just select that as our preset, HD 720p 2997. And that'll make it very easy for us to export to that customer. Now, a very important thing that we need to do is determine where the end product is going to go. So we want to click on here, and we want to make sure that we navigate to our media drive, go to our projects, and make sure that we're putting it where we can find it. In this case, we're just going to put it in the directory for our project. Now, if you have a lot of products that you may need to export, you can add a folder in here just for organization purposes. So perhaps I want to right-click, and let's say I want to add a new folder here, and I can call it, let's say, Finished Exports. or something similar, and I can put them in there. So if I do a lot of different exports and I have a lot in my folder, I don't have to look very hard to find it. All right, so now that I've set where it's going to go, I'm pretty much ready to go. Let me just go back here real quick and point out that this is the name that the file will be saved as. Right now we're using our standard naming convention, and that'll probably work for most things. If a client requires something else, you can go in here and change the name as appropriate. But again, we're going to go ahead and leave that. We've already got it marked TPC here, which is pretty standard. Now that we've got the location set up, what we want to do is make sure that we have some appropriate metadata. Metadata is information that is stored inside the file and allows us to recall this information without any extra files or anything. It's actually embedded directly into the file. Most of what we're going to use, actually all of what we're going to use, is in the section called Dublin Core. And what we can do here is we can start putting in some useful information that if somebody finds this file and gets this file, that they can open up and see from within Premiere or inside Adobe's Bridge program as well. So we're going to put some basic information here. We'll put our station in. So let's say we're AFN Bavaria. How's that? And don't really have anything for coverage, but maybe we want to put the name in here. So we'll say, let's just put Staff Sergeant Santa Claus, like we put it in the slate. We can put the date in here. Well, we should put the date in here. So we'll say 15 April 2013. And here we can put in a description of the story, a little bit more than the slug, and give some people a little bit more information about the story. So how about a user level award ceremony for outstanding leadership. So that's our little description that people can look at and see. Now down here is the title. Even though we have it stored, if somebody accidentally renames the file, it could get lost, but we can put it in here as well. So let's go ahead and put that in there just as we did before. MacArthur Awards, and we'll give it that same designation so we find it. And then the type, I like to put what it is, a TV news story, let's say. If it was B-roll, we'd put B-roll. If it was a radio news story or something, we can just put appropriate. And that's a pretty good amount of information that we can put in here and use later on. All right, we'll click OK, and this will be stored within the file when we export it. Now, we talked about where are we going to put or what part of the sequence are we going to use. You can see here we can slide through and see the story that we produced, and we can see our slates here and everything. And what we want to do is tell it which part of the story that we want to use. And you remember that we said there were three ways. We said you can take the entire sequence, an in and out point, or the work area that we've set up. And in this case, we'll take the work area. Also notice there is a custom setting, which would allow you, if you forgot to set your settings previously, you have an in point and out point, and you can actually use these sliders to adjust the parts that you want. And that's just to help you in case you forgot to do it before. All right, now that takes us time to export. Now we have two ways to export our media, and basically one is called Q and one is called export. And the difference is if we hit export, it will immediately begin the exporting, and that could be a good thing if you have just one way you want to export it and you really have nothing else to do. You can hit export and you're going to have nothing you can do, because it's going to take over the program and run the export right here and now. If you hit Q, what it's going to do is actually load up Adobe Media Encoder, and it will take over the processing for the export. And the best part is it's going to do it in the background, which frees you to go back to Premiere and do any other things you have to do, maybe cut different versions of it, work on another story, whatever it is you need to do. The media encoder will actually work in the background for you. When media encoder loads, you'll see once the media encoder loads, already have you'll have product. Some options here, and you'll notice what's nice is it shows me where it is other things that I was doing previously, the product. But right here is and then it's also showing you the formats that you selected previously. H.364 and the 720p 2997, and it's pretty much ready to go. If this was all that I needed to do, I would merely press the start button here, and it would go about its business, and I can get back to mine, and it'll give me a little indication later when it's done. But before we hit the start button, we're going to do a few more things while we have this story all queued up and ready to be exported. You'll notice here on the side that we have presets. Now under user presets, those are the ones that we make. You'll notice I have quite a selection of different kinds here. Now once you make an export for each one of these types, you too will have all of these presets. But you can make them yourself as well. So let's go through a couple of these and see how we can create our own presets from the system presets that we have down below. The first thing, let's make one for going out to automation. For those that serve a local television channel that need to broadcast directly to base cable or some other means, you're going to need to make something that your agility system can then ship out to the Titan. Okay, so for that we'll go to broadcast and we'll select the MPEG-2 preset here. Now they're not going to have one for us that's exactly what we want, but we'll get one close. We'll take a 720p 2997, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this right on top of the name of the product. Okay, not this line here, because if I drop it here it will change what we've already set up for this export. We want to put it up here and create a new one. So when I let go, I have a new export queued up, ready to go. Now this is not exactly what we want, so we're going to have to go in here and make some changes. To do that, all I need to do is click on the settings. This will bring you back to the export settings that we saw before, and now we can go through and make some changes here. So let's see, we have some key settings that we're going to have to make sure that we change, and we'll go through these one by one. Now the output name, if for some reason it's different and you need to change it, you can simply come in here and change the name of it. So instead of TPC, let's just call it, how about Titan, so we can differentiate the two. Now, if your local procedures require a specific name here, maybe it's a 2-minute update or something, you can go ahead and put the house number or whatever else is required. You can do that now, or you can do it after the export is done. Now we need to go in and make some changes to our settings, and there's quite a few changes that we're going to have to make, but this shouldn't take very long. So the first thing we want to do is change the quality. Right now it's at 4, and I can just click on this 4 and change it to 5. So we want to change the quality from 4 to 5. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to make sure it's NTSC, which it is. And then now this is set up for the wrong resolution, so we're going to need to change the frame width, which will be 720. And then we want to change the frame height to 480. Now you'll notice sometimes that it doesn't cooperate. Why? Because we're going from 16:9 to 4:3. So it's going to keep fighting. You can do this all day long, or you can click here, which will not force these two to move in conjunction. So we'll uncheck that and we'll say 720, and we'll come down here and verify that's 480, and now we're in our NTSC format, our 4:3 format. We want to make sure it's 2997. The field order we want to change from none, because it's no longer progressive, to lower. Now, you'll notice that we're leaving the pixel aspect ratio alone, because what this will do is when it's broadcast, you watch it on a flat screen, high definition television, it will look proper. Everything will be in the right proportions. But when you watch it on an older NTSC television, it'll still broadcast to it, except things will look a little taller, a little squished, if you will. But since the majority of our audience is watching on a widescreen television, we want to give them the best experience we can. The next one we want to look at is profile, and we want to change it from main to high. And the level is going to be high. Okay, let's make sure we have all these. So we have high and high. And then we go down to bit rate. Our bit rate section, we're going to change it from variable bit rate to constant bit rate. And then we're going to change our bit rate itself from 6 to 6.62. 6.62. Okay. And we're almost there. And lastly, what we want to do, and that's all we're going to need in here, is we want to check the frame blending option here. So and what that's going to do for us is HD to SD, things look a little when better. It makes the any conversion. Now we want to make sure that our source range is appropriate, more subtle. And in this case, perhaps we don't want the slate, let's say. Maybe we want the product to go without the slate. I can come here and I can change it so that it starts on the story. And we kind of alluded to that a few minutes ago. So maybe I want to start it on the first frame of video and say this is my endpoint by selecting the endpoint button here. And then at the end, well, we'll play out the whole story and we'll say this is my out point. Notice that the source range automatically changed to custom because, well, we just changed it. So now we've got most of the settings done. We're in good shape here. I don't want to have to do this every time. So what I can do is I can say save this preset. And now what I'm going to say is, well, next time we do this, I want this to be something I'll recognize. So maybe it's, AFN Titan export. And now when I come in here next time, all of my settings that I use, it will remember. And if I had any filters, which we didn't get into, or FTP to send it somewhere, we could also include those in the preset, but it doesn't really apply for this one. Now you'll notice it says right here, AFN Titan export is the preset that we're using. If I want to put a comment in here, I could, just so I know, 16 by 9, let's say, made to fit on NTSC for automation. Now this will be stored along with it, so if I wanted to save that as a comment, it will go in there as well. I can say save, and instead of copy of AFN, we don't want a copy of AFN Titan export. And there we go. Now we've got a comment. I'll know a little readily what this is for. The last thing we need to do before we say OK here is metadata. Remember, we had a lot to type in before. The good news is when you click on your metadata button and go in here, you'll notice all of the metadata is still here. That's really useful. That means I don't have to retype all of that information each time that I do that. So that's a real useful thing. If there were anything else you wanted to add based on any local procedures, you can do that now. Maybe you want to add the house number for automation or whatever. Otherwise, just click OK. When I click OK now, you'll see that this changed from the MPEG-2 to our Titan export now. And we have that ready to go. Now you will notice that there are two of them in here now, which could be problematic. And we can go back here and delete one. You'll notice that the comment, it tells me which is which, and it doesn't matter which one I want to delete. Let's get rid of this old one here, and I can right click and delete that. and now there's not a duplication. So this is how we make our own preset. Again, we started with a system preset, and then we made our own. And it made it very easy for us to do that with the settings that we have. Now, we can go through all of these and make our own again. All of the instructions for this are in your HD workflow, and it will show you the specific information of what to change each setting for. So let's say I want to do a web version as well. You'll note again, I can just pull that preset off. We bring up the preset that's closest on making a new one, the name, and now I've got another one. And if I want to go in here and look at this, the next time I can see what I have here for the web. I've got an H.264. This is going to show me in here all of my settings. It's 1280 by 720, progressive 2997, 1.5 megabit is my target bit rate. And some audio information. So all of that has been preset previously. I don't have to do anything, but I may want to come in here and say, do I really want it to go on the web with that slate? Probably not. So let me just adjust so that it doesn't start with the slate. There we go. Beginning of the story. And I can mark that as my in. It automatically switches to custom, updates the duration, and it's good to go. Again, if I had any metadata that I needed to change, I can do that now, or I can just click OK. And we have another one that's ready to go. Those are the major ones for automation, for the web, and for post-production, whether it's by AFN, the Pentagon channel, or DMA production. When we're ready, all we need to do is press the play button. And what's really cool about this is not only is this happening in the background, but you'll notice it's doing them all at the same time. And it's just churning away. But the good news is, if I wanted to go back to Premiere, I can go in here and do anything else, start editing another story, do whatever I need, and know that it's running in the background and it doesn't really affect anything that I'm doing. That's the advantage of queuing them up. Plus, by queuing it up, I didn't have to repeat the metadata, and I can do multiple ones, multiple different exports all at one time. When it's all done, I'll be notified by a chime that it's complete. So that's it. It's done now. It's done. All of the media products has been encoded, right where we put them. And so let's go take a look. Finished products media drive we set up into our project inside of our current project. Here's our finished exports. Now we can that we made, and here we see all of our finished products. And that's it. Now you'll notice this one file here, which is an XMP file, and the reason this is here is because our MP4s have the metadata embedded in the file. The standard MPEG file that we're using for automation doesn't know how to read the XMP file that would be embedded, so it actually sends a separate file with the text information that we put in there, or that metadata. Our automation system doesn't use that, but it created it for us just the same. The metadata for the MPEG-4s that we made for the web and for DMA production have the information already embedded. Now all you need to do is follow your local procedures for either FTPing the product to DMA, let's say. Perhaps you need to send it via web interface to your website, or use your agility to send it to the Titan for your automation system. Just follow your local procedures to finish this process.